The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all. Yes, now the IndySiders are back. We are in control.
Look at the adjective.
Play. I am the Heartbreak Kid, Mark Radulich. He is Big Sexy Harry Broadhurst, and the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder are at 100 to 101 with a little less than 6 minutes left in the fourth. Not that anyone cares except me, because I have money on the game. My other two bets did well today. I bet under 10.5 runs for the Marlins and the Pirates. That hit. And I bet over 5.5 runs for the Braves Brewers. That hit. So I need this Thunder Pacers game, Harry, to go over 223, and I need the ladies. Ladies! Oh, ladies! Nice ladies! I need them, the Liberty and the Aces. No, the Sparks, rather. The Sparks and the Aces to go over 162.5.
Did I just get Jerry Lewis?
Nice lady.
You're welcome for the Braves putting up 7 on the Brewers today.
How is that you're doing, Harry Broadhurst, you magician, you?
I'm a Braves fan.
Oh, I see.
Chop on.
So you willed it into existence?
Well, we've sucked the rest of the season, so it was bound to happen sometime.
Let me tell you how I've been watching a little bit of baseball this season. You know, not necessarily because I'm betting all the time, mostly because I'm at my desk a lot, and I like to have sports on in the background while I'm doing this, while I'm doing work, etc. And it's just, I can't watch narrative television anymore. Who has that kind of time? But sports with the sound off in the background while you're doing other things, that's where it's at in our ADHD riddled world that we live in. And so I've been watching a little bit of baseball. The scores for baseball games are astronomical. Like, these bitches be hitting 14 runs per team. Like, I saw some like total scores were like over 20.
What was it earlier this year? I think the Braves had a game that ended like 18-2.
Yeah, the Yankees also had like a stupid score.
Against the Dodgers. They just Saturday Night Baseball, and then they came back and beat the Dodgers the next day on Sunday Night Baseball.
Yeah, I got to go back and look, because I remember like there was one Yankee game. It wasn't even spring ball, because the spring ball scores were also like way stupid.
Yeah, but in fairness, nobody plays defense in spring ball, so
I've noticed that betting. I remember looking at the over under for spring ball, and it was like 10 runs. That's insanity. And then I realized these people hit like 100 in a spring ball game. Like they don't even have outfielders.
Yeah, everything's made up and defense doesn't matter.
Defense doesn't matter is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Harry Broadhurst, we're here to talk wrestling, not real life sports. We are talking.
Wait, wrestling's not a sport?
Not even a little bit. WWE and Triple A.
Careful who you say that to.
It's still real to them. World Collide. That was brought to you in Los Angeles this past weekend, and then we're also going to talk Money in the Bank. But I want to kick off the show with the great hiring and firing and refiring and rehiring. There was another round of cuts this last little bit.
Kinda.
And they let R-Truth go. And the internet acted like he was the great saint sent from, he was the son of God himself. that he'd been sent here to save the people, and the people, nailed him to a cross and sent him back to his father is what happened. My God. R-Truth got his contract wasn't renewed, as I understand it.
Yes.
And the internet erupted like toddlers who hadn't napped in a while, and then he reappeared at Money in the Bank. Tell me all about it, Mr. Broadhurst.
Well, none of the 3 contracts that are in this most recent wave of talent, Truth, Carlito, and Valhalla, none of them were releases. They were just non-renewals.
Right.
Truth was a situation where Truth is universally respected by peers and audiences alike. He's a guy who's done everything he can in order to help get over whatever ridiculous stuff that they've given him, in addition to be from everything that has been said, one of the easiest guys to work with in the company.
Yeah, he was the company guy, wasn't he?
The general belief is Truth was a lifer. That as long as Truth wanted to have a job with the WWE, he would have a job with the WWE. I mean, obviously, Ron's getting up there in age. He's 53, so you're not going to see him wrestling in the ring as much here. But he was a guy whose presence backstage was felt, and you could see that in all the tributes that were paid to him by all of his fellow talent members. In addition to, he was a guy who connected on a personal level with fans, because for as ridiculously dramatic and soap opera-y as pro wrestling can be at times, sometimes you just want a good chuckle when it came to pro wrestling. And R-Truth pulling out a ladder and turning the Royal Rumble into a Money in the Bank match, fucking hysterical.
Allow me to be the devil's advocate. Horny devil. Horny she-devil.
All right, Terry, get to your point.
This is a publicly traded company. They have spent a lot of money, first of all, in purchasing this company. TKO did, but this is a company with a lot of expenses and I think a fair amount of debt. It is not uncommon for a multinational multi-billion-dollar company to cut unnecessary expensive talent. The idea of a lifer is passé in any company these days. No company expects anyone to be there from their 20s till their 60s, retirement, give them a gold watch, baby, and send them on their way. That's just not how the modern world works. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm picking up the standpoint of view of where the company was coming from. And if R-Truth is a very expensive piece of talent that isn't really being used and isn't necessarily a draw, because I'm not debating any of what you said, but in none of what you said was this guy draws money.
Before his contract was terminated, he had the second highest selling shirt on the WWE shop.
Okay, that's a fair point.
The Ron Cena shirt from his Saturday night's main event match against Cena.
Okay, so that feels like an isolated incident, but over the let's say the last 4 years, because 5 years gets you into COVID territory. But let's say the last 4 years, how did his merch or how did his presence on any given PLE or broadcasted program?
I don't
ticket sales. That's all I'm saying. If I'm the company guy explaining to the coworkers why this happened, that's my explanation.
And I don't disagree with that if you're looking at it from a strictly business perspective. However, there are things that transcend business in this situation that we find ourselves in the world of professional sports here, and that there are glue guys, there are company guys, there are morale guys that you keep around in order to boost those around them. And releasing somebody who was so universally beloved, who had been there forever, basically put a sour taste into everybody's mouth.
Yeah, welcome to working for any American company in the year of our Lord 2025. And that's really all I'm saying. Like,
I'm not disagreeing with it from a business decision.
Right.
The rumor was his Truth was making about $500,000 a year, which for a guy at the level that he was at was way too high. I cannot deny that.
Right. And I think that is more of, because do I agree or disagree? No, I don't care. But if I'm running a business and I'm looking at, well, who can we get rid of, or who aren't we going to renew? I'm not renewing guys that are third, fourth, fifth tier that we're only keeping around for comedy spots. And I can't tell you how many times, like, the ground floor level guys disagree with how management runs things, but and I think there's a lot of credence to sort of the ethereal things that you're pointing out, like guys that help with morale backstage, guys with a lot of wisdom. But listen, I worked for a fairly big company for the last 10 years, and when I decided it was time to make a change, I can tell you right now, nobody cared. My experience didn't matter. All of the, like I said, the ethereal things that I brought to the table, they're like, all right, we'll find a new person with light in their eyes and hope in their heart that we can stomp out to replace you.
Well, yeah, the old theory in that regard is your job listing will be posted before your obituary is.
So why'd they bring him back? Other than, that this was a wildly unpopular thing with the fans.
I honestly think that's it. I don't think this. Okay, so we're probably going to get into this part of the discussion. We might as well get into it now. Shoot or work, 100% a shoot. I don't think any.
I think Triple H has become Baghdad Bob. So just to explain the context of that. First of all, if I have to explain the context of Baghdad Bob, I will. But what I'm more trying to get at is when they asked Triple H about R-Truth, and they were like,
"Are you enjoying the show?"
Yeah, and he goes, "Are you enjoying the show?" That was a Baghdad Bob line. That was, I don't want to admit, I'm not allowed to admit out loud that management made a bad call and then had to reverse course because it was so unpopular. And at this point, we are trying to retain goodwill among the fans in order to increase sales, and fill, put butts in seats essentially. So we can't afford to be doing very, remarkably unpopular things. But he can't say that. He has to toe the company line, so he did a Baghdad Bob. Remember Baghdad Bob?
I do not, but no, you're not wrong.
He was I think the Ministry of Information for Iraq. So as we're blowing up, cities in Iraq during the Gulf War, Baghdad Bob was like, we have the enemy on the run. We will be pushing America back to Kuwait in no time. Meanwhile, like, tanks are rolling behind him.
Is this the original Gulf War, like 90s?
No. This was
or the Afghani War.
This is Bush's Gulf War.
Okay.
Iraq War. This was the War on Terror Part 2. This time we mean business.
You do realize I was a teenager for that.
I do. That's why I'm making a reference that if you're an old head like me, maybe you got, but
somebody in my age range might not
have been paying that close attention to the war in Iraq.
I was not. That is an accurate statement. Going back to what I was saying, though, it's definitely a shoot here. And I think this is one of those mea culpa situations with bringing him back as quickly as they did. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see the writing on the wall for him coming back when Cena dropped the line and acknowledged him by name on SmackDown right before the pay-per-view, too.
So what are the terms of his deal? And I'm asking...
I haven't seen anything.
Well, I guess I was asking somewhat rhetorically because I figured you were just as much in the know about this end of it, is that he's coming back as Ron Killings. That
correct.
He's going to be using his name, which I think is, what do you think about that?
I like it, especially if this is going to be his last on-screen run. I think Truth is a guy that, and for those who don't know, obviously he got his main start on the Carolina independent scene. But then he was briefly employed by the WWE back in the late 90s, early 2000s under the name Cakewick.
Right.
He then left the WWE. He was released from his contract in 2001 and was around for the birth of TNA as Ron the Truth Killings, where he's a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion as Ron the Truth Killings.
Didn't they pair him up with the Pac-Man Jones?
As Team Pac-Man for a while, a little bit later on. But originally, he was a two-time NWA Heavyweight Champion, as well as a former multiple-time TNA Tag Team Champion with Conan and Road Dogg under the moniker 3 Live Crew.
Right. I vaguely remember this. I mostly just remember the Pac-Man Jones theme. Whoa, it's the Pac-Man Jones. Whoa, it's the Pac-Man
And then
Jones.
him getting cease and desisted by the NFL in order to not actually make physical contact.
Yes.
So Truth
That
had
was
to
the
do
best.
all the wrestling.
What a signing by TNA.
That was LOL TNA before Bischoff arrived. But anyways, going back to what I was saying about Truth there is Truth wanted to have an opportunity to showcase what he's capable of from a non-gimmicked kind of perspective here, to be himself in a sense, to be the guy that he was in the NWA when he made his name, that got him noticed again by the WWE and got him re-signed back in 2007.
Because for a while he was just R-Truth, but there was a period where, like, we know him as like the funny comedy guy now, but it's sort of like the long-term extension of what was a radical shift in his persona in the WWE, where he was normal and then he was plumb retarded. And he kept doing weird things. And then, because the WWE collectively is like a toddler who finally got the adult to laugh, and so they have to keep doing the same joke over and over, he just kept being plumb retarded.
So I think a lot of that had to do with the original heel turn back in like the early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started doing the bit with Little Jimmy. And that's what caught on with audiences, with the way that he bought into the bit with Little Jimmy.
That was Fandango before Fandango. And here's what I mean by that, because I brought this up recently with somebody else, where it wasn't that was Fandango was popular, it was Fandangoing that was popular, and it was only popular because everyone was so aggravated with the WWE, so it was like their way of protesting. I remember I got to get this out. I won't be able to sleep tonight. The Little Jimmy thing annoyed the piss out of me, and I'll tell you why. Because he was doing a thing with John Cena, and I don't remember the exact details of it, but he was like chastising John Cena, and he was saying to him, if I remember correctly, he was like, John Cena wasn't fully heel, but he was somehow like disappointed with John Cena. He was like, "You're gonna disappoint Little Jimmy," and the Little Jimmy thing caught fire, and then Little Jimmy became essentially the invisible child. And it was all he was saying was, "You're upsetting people."
Yeah, you're upsetting the Little Jimmys and Little Jessicas. Yes,
right. And because again, the WWE collectively, is an autistic child. They're like, "Oh no, just keep doing Little Jimmy, and now we'll make it the Invisible Man." It's like, that's not what he was doing. That's not what that meant. That annoyed. I'm making a big deal about it because it annoyed the piss out of me at the time.
It worked. It may have annoyed you, but it got over with the mainstream audience.
Mainstream audiences are revolting. Anyway.
At times.
So now he's going to be Ron Killings. He's already done the match with Cena. He got beat. What else? At this point, I don't think he can continue being like half an idiot. I'll tell you this. I remember when he was challenging John Cena, and he was a heel, and he did the Confederate R-Truth bit, which was hilarious.
Build up for those wanting reference points here. Build up to Capital Punishment 2011.
So I bring it up to say the following. He's already kind of done like angry Ron Killings, speaking truth to power. And then he just challenged John Cena saying you turning your back on people is not good, and I'm going to beat the good back into you. And it didn't work. He got beat, and then he got fired. So I don't know, like bringing him back for one more year and letting him have, to save face with the fans, I'm more or less fine with. I've seen dumber. But storyline wise, feud wise, I don't know what else to do with him. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else the company can do with him. They've already got enough top. It's a little crowded at the top right now.
I don't disagree with that. So I think the point here is going to be this is going to be like a retirement tour for Ron, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And without actually calling it such.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a way of saying, our bad. We went about it the entire wrong way. We should have figured out a compromise in order to have things come to a more satisfying conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is an opportunity for you to get a chance to go on this tour, to go out and say goodbye to the people that have watched you and enjoyed you for years, while still being able to show some of our newer fans what exactly it is that Ron Killings is capable of. Because underneath the facade of R-Truth, Ron Killings is actually a very good professional wrestler.
Oh, no doubt. You know what I'd actually like? I would like to see kind of a reconstituted New Day in the form it was supposed to be. When Consequences Creed, I like doing that. When Xavier Woods was forming the New Day, it was kind of like not necessarily a militant black Nation of Islam kind of a thing. It didn't have that veneer to it.
It felt Nation of Domination light.
But that's what I'm saying. Like it felt like, come here, brother. Let me tell you why the white man is terrible. But like not that obvious. I kind of want to go back to that.
I don't know that you can get away with that in 2025.
Not that blatant, but I do think like Truth and Woods and maybe just
Kofi
just to have him do flippity doos, Kofi. I think being kind of the Greek chorus and screaming about the bad things in the WWE, I actually think wouldn't be like the worst idea ever.
See, I think you go the other way with it. And I think you have Truth stand up as the voice of the people against the New Day. The backlash of wanting them to bring back the fun and entertainment that he used to provide, understanding that you can take on a more serious tone while not taking it to the extremes that the New Day took it.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm sorry I'm distracted and I'm being unprofessional.
You're watching the end of the game, I'm aware.
No, but it's 107 to 116 with 2.3 seconds left. But my betting app is always ahead just a little bit. And it's not red, it's not green. I'm getting the line through it. Like they discounted the entire bet.
It just hasn't been settled yet.
Okay.
You use Hard Rock Bet, right?
Yeah.
You're in Florida.
Yeah, and instead of a green check mark or a red mitt, 107. It was. Oh, you know what? It was supposed to be over 223. It went exactly to 223. That's what happened there.
Is that the final 116, 107?
Yeah.
It's a push.
Right. So I get credit for it, but it doesn't change. Yeah, I'll get less money. I'll get less money.
It'll pay out as a 3-leg parlay instead of a 4 if the over hits in the WNBA game.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I figured that out as we were talking about it. It's like the first time I've ever seen that happen. I've seen Go ahead.
It's legal in Ohio, so I've done my share of studying for sports booking and stuff.
This is why people come here, for us to distractedly talk about anything but wrestling.
Well, I mean, you pulled me away from Collision, so
nobody watches Collision.
Well, it's another one of those fucking 4-hour adventures that Tony Khan apparently likes to take us on.
Whatever, wrestling's gay. Listen, let's talk about wrestling.
I blame you for this, actually. Hold on. No, I blame you for this.
Me?
Yes, because every now and then my mind plays tricks on me and I have dreams about wrestling. And I don't know why, but I do. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching, and in my head, I'm watching TV and I'm watching an episode of Monday Night Raw. And all of a sudden, Yellow Brick Road by Elton John hits.
You're welcome.
And I'm like, you son of a bitch, Radulich.
I just want to know that I had an impact on people's lives in the time that I spent on this Mortal Coil, and knowing that somewhere in the back of your mind, I have made an
appearance on Raw happen.
Yeah, that I can die happy. Here lies Mark Radulich, devoted father. He fucked with other people's heads. Speaking of fucking with people's heads, let's talk about John Cena, because I think we've beat the R-Truth thing to death. R-Truth, pick 2. John Cena and CM Punk. And here's where I'm going to lean on you, Harry. I'm a drunken girl at the bar, and I need to lean on you while you carry me, into the Uber and make sure I get home safe. Not that you'd ever do anything to me, because you're a noble man. But I am drunk and not paying attention and need the strong embrace of a noble Harry Broadhurst to walk me home.
Bold of you to assume I'd stay around a drunk person.
Ugh, you annoy me. Listen, why? So I wanted to talk about this because there are elements of wrestling news stories that just never reach me, or I wasn't paying attention at the time that it was a thing. So Night of Champions is in Saudi Arabia
Correct.
because of Saudi blood money, as is Canelo versus Crawford, September 13th. Yes, check out my TikTok. Plug. And they did a bit
right there at Mark Radulich on TikTok.
That is correct, sir. I just did a TikTok talking about Saudi blood money and Canelo versus Crawford. I got a lot of comments saying Canelo's going to beat Crawford. And I'm like, weren't we all like in agreement just a year or two ago that Crawford's awesome and like unbeatable? Anyway,
isn't he like a former Olympic gold medalist?
Like they all are.
Well, in fairness, there's like 97 weight classes.
Everybody but Jake Paul in boxing has a gold medal. So listen.
Well, Jake has one in assholery.
They do a bit on Raw where Cena has a confrontation with CM Punk, and CM Punk's like, if you were any kind of a man, you would fight me now. And Cena says, I will fight you now, but now is in Saudi Arabia. And CM Punk goes, oh! So, he pulls out a fan and he fans himself. He says, my stars and goddess, oh, heavens to Betsy.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
And then I go on the TikTok machine and I see the bit from The Simpsons where, Bart is like dressed in his warrior gear and he's on a throne and it's Krusty and they're like, why, Krusty, why? It's like, they drove a dump truck full of money to my house. I'm only human. And Krusty is CM Punk.
Yes. I've seen the image. It got memed all around Facebook as well.
Okay. Explain.
CM Punk has long been outspoken about the fact of WWE going to Saudi Arabia. CM Punk, in fairness, for most of that time was not in the company.
Right. That's what I like CM Punk, but I don't like CM Punk. Like, there are things about him I like, and I think there are things that he says that are true, and I know I've mentioned this before to you, but there are other times where CM Punk is an intellectually dishonest pissant.
There's a lot of
he is everything me and my son don't like about punk rock.
There's a lot of virtue signaling there. I won't disagree with that. He stands behind his causes on a lot of things as well, however. So
until it's convenient for him not to.
To be fair, if somebody backed up a Brinks truck full of cash to you and said, you get this if you go to Saudi Arabia, your ass is getting on a plane too.
Then maybe don't speak out against Saudi Arabia to begin with, you hypocritical bastard.
Human beings are hypocritical? What?
Okay, what are you, his fucking attorney? Listen, my thing is, you can privately think it's distasteful. I do. Look.
I'd made multiple jokes about it.
I just said Saudi blood money. Clearly, I'm not a fan of this. Want to know how many events I've watched that took place at Saudi Arabia? All of them. All of them I was home for. When they did when they did Tyson Fury versus Ngannou, that was in Saudi Arabia. I was right there. Robert watched it. We talked about it. I think we did an alternative commentary for it. When they did Usyk Tyson Fury, I watched. Every one of the last Bivol, not Lomachenko, maybe Lomachenko, I don't remember anymore. But one of the last big Saudi Arabian pay-per-view shows I watched them all. I get it, but I'm also when I say Saudi blood money, I'm kind of looking at it and going, I'm acknowledging that this is a problematic country that everyone's willing to turn a blind eye to because they have enough money to make real change. And so it's kind of the CNN Access story. This is going to be the second reference you're not going to get tonight because I am old and I remember these things. So in addition to Baghdad Bob, back during it was either the Gulf War or the Iraq War during the Bush years, it was probably Iraq. There was a lot of comment about access media in Iraq or in other places that were, not great places. And CNN, it came out that CNN did not report on things they should have been reporting about because if they had, they would have been ousted out of Iraq. They'd have lost their access. Oh. So they made decisions. The decisions were, we'll play just enough ball to keep our access, but everything else is fair game. And Iraq, for their part, under Saddam Hussein, more or less played along with that.
In fairness, that everybody does that, though. In order to get along, in order to get on, you have to get along.
Right. So again, because I enjoy boxing and because I enjoy WWE, despite my distaste for the fact that people are turning a blind eye to some problematic elements of Saudi Arabia, not the least of which was funding terrorism, I still watch. But I'm also not like an outspoken critic either. I'm not on social media banging pots and pans going, this is bad, don't do this. Turn around and support it.
I mean, I've made my opinion of it known. I think it's in poor taste to do it, but at the same time, I understand it from a business perspective.
Right, but that's you're just saying what I'm saying with different words.
Right. We agree on this.
Okay. My issue, it always sounds like you're disagreeing with me, but saying the exact same thing. It's a weird thing you do. But
no, we agree on this.
But that's my problem with CM Punk. Privately or in a way that he hasn't, you want to complain about the Saudi, saying, I'm not a fan of the Saudi Arabia thing. I think it's distasteful, but I understand why we're doing it. Not to be as adamant about not going to Saudi Arabia as he has been.
Do you
then turn around and go?
Do you remember the Twitter spat that he had with Miz that led to the quote in question?
Not even a little bit.
All right, so that's where a lot of this.
I remember war stuff from the 2000s, Harry. That's all I remember.
So, Miz posted something about Punk. I don't specifically remember what, but he posted something about Punk, and Punk's response, because he got a wild hair up his ass about it, was go suck a blood-covered dick in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the general belief, the disdain for Punk in Saudi Arabia came from, is the fact that he used it as an insult towards Miz.
Like I said, I don't think Punk chooses his words wisely all the time.
Punk can be Punk's own worst enemy on occasion, yes. Yeah. In regards to him actually doing the show, well, I give you a simple quote from a man named Ted DiBiase Sr. Everybody's got a price.
Aleister Black is with the company, but still can't go to Saudi Arabia, right?
I know MVP couldn't. I don't know about Aleister.
And Sami Zayn can't go because
Sami can.
Okay, I thought the whole thing was like
Saudi Arabia and Palestine apparently made up.
Okay,
I don't understand it either. I just know.
Is Sami Zayn Palestinian or is he Turkish?
Wherever Sami is from, well, technically he's Canadian, but I know he's Muslim, so.
No, I understand that. But I knew there was a reason why he legitimately couldn't go.
There was.
I've never heard anything bad out of Sami Zayn, where Saudi Arabia was. It was a religious thing that he couldn't go.
It was a political thing, actually, from his nation of origin. In Saudi Arabia, they were like beefing, but apparently they settled it. And then Sami got welcomed with open arms when he went a couple of years ago. I think Sami went for the first time like 2 years ago.
Okay. So anybody left in the company that's still like speaking? Because at this point, Saudi Arabia is like on the house show circuit along with, Des Moines and Sheboygan. So,
actually, Saudi Arabia is like the only house show left on the circuit since they got canceled by TKO.
Correct. So I would imagine nobody's an outspoken critic of Saudi Arabia anymore.
Again, when they back up a big enough Brinks truck, eventually your morals get left somewhere at the door.
What did you think of the promo, just to kind of close that segment out? What did you think of the promo between Cena and Punk?
I think it was wise to kind of play off of the known hesitancy and the known issues that Punk has had with this in the past. I do think that they kind of rushed it by having Punk immediately shake his head yes and then announce that the match was official. I would have had Punk storm, and I saw somebody else post this. I can't take full credit for this because I saw somebody post this on 411. I would have had Punk storm off and not immediately respond to Cena's challenge right then and there.
I think here's the thing: you're relying too much on insider knowledge. Like, let's put it this way: you have more insider knowledge than I do. I have somewhat limited knowledge of the backstage internet stuff, and here we are having a discussion about it. You are depending a little too much on this wonky bit of internet memery for the large majority of fans to follow why this, like who gives a, like, if we're going to do this, but we're going to do this at Night of Champions. Oh, heavens to Betsy. Okay, that's one thing. We're going to do this, but we're doing it in Saudi Arabia. The fuck does anyone care what part of the world they do this in or what city? That has to have meaning for that wrestler, and it does, but nobody else knows that. That's outside of the small circle of internet nerds.
I would argue that the internet audience is bigger than you make it out to be. It's not the bulk of the audience, but it's a larger portion of the audience than I think you think it is.
Whether it is or it isn't, the WWE needed to do a better job of explaining why Saudi Arabia means shit to CM Punk.
And there's still 4 weeks for them to do that.
Okay, then I'm going to wait to see what more evidence is brought into the court of Radulich before I make a final verdict. How does that sound?
Well, we reconvene on the 7th of July.
Yeah,
I believe
it's after the only other event that's worth talking about all year long besides WrestleMania, the biggest event in pro wrestling history, GCW Backyard Wrestling, and we're talking about it on July 9th.
I knew it was somewhere in that range that we were doing it. Just the point being is that is when we reconvene. The Saudi Arabia show will have happened by then, so we'll be able to talk about the build as well as the match itself come July 9th.
The last bit of news that I wanted to talk about, and before we get to your bit of news, is Jey Uso lost the title to Gunther in a match I have not watched. But I saw all the internet screaming about it. Lots of hot girls on TikTok these days claiming to be wrestling fans, screaming about poor old dear Jey Uso. And then somebody put up a great TikTok of like the top 10 best earning, most popular wrestlers with short title reigns, Steve Austin being one of them. If you'll remember, he beats Shawn Michaels March-ish of 1998, proceeds to lose the title for a night to Kane at King of the Ring.
I think it might have been the very beginning of April 98, if I'm not mistaken.
Either way. And then he loses it again when he's double pinned by The Undertaker
at Breakdown.
Kane. Yeah, which I think was September, if I remember correctly.
You are correct.
Right.
Because the
September
following
is the triple threat match. The following week he's the ref and he won't play ball. And then it's Survivor Series.
And the
Deadly Game.
And the Deadly Game.
Do you like it when I dance for you? Deadly Game.
I think you might be closer to that drunk girl in the bar than you think you are.
Oh, I know how close I am. Anyway, so like if they could take the title off of Steve Austin, and throw it around, smack it, flip it, rub it down. I don't know why anyone think Jey Uso is important.
Sorry, not sorry. Jey Uso's never heavyweight championship material.
Hang on. I'm gonna give you kudos. Sing it like you mean it, sexy Harry Broadhurst.
I like Jey Uso as a performer. I love him as a tag team wrestler. I do think they lean into the Samoan Young Bucks thing a little bit too much, too often sometimes when it comes to him and his brother. But Jey Uso got over on the benefit of a catchphrase that caught fire with the ADHD crowd. Now, I've been in arenas where
was it fandangoing?
I mean, it's modern fandangoing.
Was it Little Jimmy?
It's modern fandangoing.
Was it what? What?
Please don't start that. Anyways, so this was never intended to be a long title reign. This was never intended to be something that was going to carry the company, right? Because with all due respect to Jey Uso as a singles wrestler, he is not a carry the company kind of guy. Gunther as a singles wrestler is a carry the company kind of guy. Cody as a singles wrestler is a carry the company kind of guy. Cena, Punk, Orton, any of those big names that you talk about, they're carry the company kind of guys. Jey Uso was a gimmick. Jey Uso was a flash in the pan. Jey Uso was a thank you for your service and congratulations on getting as organically over as you did. It was basically the Kofi Kingston, only without getting made to look like a total bitch by Brock Lesnar.
I will go ahead and take a really hot take, maybe one you'll even disagree with, but I think of the guys you just mentioned, he's one of them. The unfortunate Chris Benoit. I think when they threw the title on him at 20, it was thank you for your service and everything that you've done. But I don't think there was look how fast he lost. Speaking of fast title reigns, look how fast he lost it to Randy Orton. He lost it. He won it at WrestleMania 20. He lost it by that year's SummerSlam.
At SummerSlam.
Yeah.
No, I don't disagree. Similar to the Daniel Bryan situation back at 30.
Mm-hmm.
Although Bryan had a couple of other title reigns sprinkled throughout.
I think they would have let that go longer had he not injured himself. Bryan, look, I love the guy to death. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Also, because of his wrestling style, he's not injury prone like a Shotzi Blackheart who's just a klutz. He was injury prone as in stop throwing yourself through plate glass windows. You're gonna die.
Eventually, when you're given 100% every night, it's going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
So I would not include him in that list because I think they would have let him carry the company longer. Same thing with Edge. Edge was another one who I think they desperately wanted for him to be the guy. And every time they put the title on him, slipped on a banana peel and injured his Glavin.
I appreciate. All of a sudden I'm seeing Professor Frink in my head now. This is like our third Simpsons reference already, and I'm here for it.
Thank you.
I mean, you got 36 seasons worth of material to call from, so.
And we quote every last one of them.
Goddamn right we do. All right. So the Jey Uso thing there, I expected it to go to SummerSlam, but then as soon as the rematch with Gunther was announced, I'm like, yeah, he's dropping the belt there.
So I've heard there's behind-the-scene reasons why, though, but I haven't clicked into the article.
I haven't seen anything about any kind of behind-the-scenes thing. I've heard talk that he might be going through a divorce.
So he might be off TV for a little bit, is the implication?
Well, there's a speculation here, and again, take this for what it is. I've seen rumors.
Isn't he married to one of the Funkadactyls?
No, that's Jimmy.
I don't know the difference.
You racist.
Wow, you were right on that. So wait, which broad is he married to?
She's not in the business.
Oh. And they're still divorcing? Why?
Because apparently he was stepping out on her with Jada Parker.
Well, at least he's got good taste.
Jesus.
What?
So anyways, that's the speculation that I've heard, that he's in the process of going through a divorce.
Gotcha. Okay. You wanted to talk about Maria
Blake Monroe.
Okay. Tell me all about it.
What are your thoughts on the rebrand of Mariah May?
I don't have any thoughts. I don't even know who this person is.
Well, the former AEW Women's Champion.
Is she a dentist? Did you know she was a dentist?
No, it's not Britt Baker.
Oh.
How much AEW are you watching these days? Where are you watching?
Almost none.
Apparently, if you don't know who Mariah May is.
I think the last time I watched anything AEW was Revolution.
The woman that Tony Storm was feuding with in the Hollywood ending.
Oh, I watched that match, but I only watched Tony Storm.
But yeah, I'm aware of that. The other woman in that match, his contract ran up with AEW, and she debuted on NXT 2 weeks ago. This week on TV, she was rebranded under her new name, Blake Monroe.
Cool.
Not giving me anything to work with here. All right, noted.
A little bit.
Nope.
You're going to have to carry this yourself, sir.
Sandbagging some bitch. All right, moving on. But no, I think Mariah actually has the potential to be a really big star in the WWE, because I think, and I've had conversations with people about this before, and I want to know. Okay, so you do remember a little bit of her, though, from the feud with Tony Storm, though.
Yes, I remember there was another female in that match.
All right. Pin-up style blonde.
Yeah.
Very, very well endowed, very risque, very leaning into her sexuality.
These all sound like things I enjoy. Blake Monroe.
Or you could just search for Mariah May, too, but whatever.
Okay. I'm looking up images.
Yeah, I'm aware. I figured.
Okay. Oh, I know who she is. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. That's I think
she's a hot piece of ass.
I think that this is an opportunity for them to find what they wanted with Mandy Rose in NXT.
Okay.
And I wanted to get your thought on that. Do you think that this is them searching to recreate something that's worked in the past? Or do you think that they're going to kind of let her be her own self there? Because they did kind of stick to that whole, the glamour thing that she did in AEW, as well as that she was doing in Stardom before she moved over to AEW
Here's
as
what I'll
well.
tell you. I think with the WWE, there's a lot of recasting old gimmicks onto new, better workers. So I'm not surprised by that in the least.
I can see where you're coming from with that. I don't disagree.
I think, like we have a Shotzi Blackheart, and we like what she's doing, and we like her look, and we like her gimmick, but she's an absolute klutz. So let's take the same thing Shotzi was doing and give it to a girl who can work. We have...
So like a Tatum Paxley.
Yeah. We have a variety of different, gimmicks that have worked over the years. Let's just keep recycling them onto different girls.
Or different guys in NXT here because of the whole Chase U thing with the realignment of Chase U now, and them rebranding Chase U with 2 new performers after the original 2 members of Chase U, the other 2 male members, Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne, were released. So now he has Kale Dixon and Uriah Connors, who Uriah, I think, is going to be something. It's not going to be as part of Chase U, though. His name's Uriah, and he loves to fight.
Super. Let's talk a little bit.
It's Fit Finley's son.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Money in the Bank before we get to Worlds Collide.
I just want to get your thoughts on the winners, the 2 briefcase winners.
Yeah, you're going to have to explain to me why you have, awesome hot piece of ass Stephanie Vader, and you have...
Still funny.
And you have Julia, and you have Rhea Ripley, and you have Alexa Bliss, and you go with Naomi, and it's like... And it's like Lewis Black's joke about when George Bush's vice president. No, it wasn't Dan Quayle. That's the other Bush.
Dick Cheney.
That's the one. Do you remember the Dick Cheney quail hunting shooting incident?
The one where he shot his best friend in the head?
It was in the face, yes.
Yeah.
So Lewis Black was talking about that at one of his stand-up specials. And he was like, when you go quail hunting, you walk like in a line. Like everyone walk shoulder to shoulder, and you kind of walk like you're soldiers in the Revolutionary War. For you to have shot your friend in the face, you'd have had to literally turn to the right and shoot the guy next to you. There's no fucking way. There's no way. He was implying he was drunk. He's like, there's no possible way that's really what happened.
I mean, it'd be a hell of a thing if he did it sober.
He used that as a metaphor for going into Iraq when Iran was the real threat. So Iran's enriching uranium. You're going to get like a history lesson on the 2000s war on terror.
Apparently.
So the whole thing was like Iran's enriching uranium. Iran's breaking nuclear treaties. Iran is funding terrorism. Iran. So he's like,
yeah, but the problem is Iran didn't have the oil fields that Iraq did.
Okay, whatever. I don't need your hippie liberal perspective. Why don't you go set a car on fire in Los Angeles while you're at it?
I'm a Republican. Fuck you.
Whatever, hippie. So he's like, Iran, turns to the right. Iraq, fire! That's kind of how I feel about the women's Money in the Bank match. Stephanie Vaquer, Rhea Ripley, Alexa Bliss, fucking Naomi?
Roxanne Perez.
Well, I would have been my 4th choice out of 4 people, but...
See, I actually think I had Roxy as the favorite.
You're a lunatic. What?
Well,
you had Stephanie Vaquer there. Why?
Because I think you're doing too much too soon with Vaquer.
I don't think you can do enough too soon.
There's a lot you'd like to do with Vaquer, I'm sure.
All night long, baby. Woo!
Yeah, that's adorable. She'd wear you out nothing flat.
Well, yeah, I'm like old and fat.
I mean, I'm middle-aged and chubby, but I wouldn't last long either.
But she can fucking hardcore wrestle me around the room. That's fine with me. I'll take a table for her. Not only does she get the purse, she gets the Popeye. Anyway.
Not only does she get the purse, she gets... That's the subtitle of the episode, by the way.
Stephanie McGee gets the purr and the Popeye.
There's your episode subtitle, and she's on Worlds Collide, so it works.
That's true. She's actually been memed. The spot she did with Julia, where she's got her head between her knees and
on the ladder.
Yeah.
Like
people are using that all over TikTok. Like nobody. That's like Stephanie McGee, and she's Capcommed into the into something else.
You know whose fault this is? Booker T's. He's the one responsible for that Devil's Kiss getting as popular. That reaction. That was all Booker T in NXT.
So explain to me why they went with Naomi. Which, by the way,
I don't have an explanation for it. It didn't make sense to me.
So she's coming out in caution tape now, and I remember at WrestleMania when she did the caution tape thing. My kids were like, what's with the caution tape? Why is she doing that? I'm like, well, it's a tale as old as time, children, that when a good wrestler turns bad, for the first little bit, his whole gimmick is that he comes out in caution tape. And I had to tell him about poor Owen Hart.
If ever there was an Owen Hart memorial, there you go. No, I don't disagree with that. That's actually a really good record.
What are we doing with Naomi then?
Proceed with caution, which is basically saying tread lightly around her or you'll end up feeling the wrath that you should have felt originally.
Oh, yay, another angry black woman. Super. I mean, what are we doing storyline?
The views and opinions of Mark Radulich.
Whatever. Look. Come on my TikTok, leave comments, get me, and get mad at me there.
I have to get that in at least once an episode, contractually obligated.
What are we doing with her story-wise? I don't understand.
I think eventually it's going to play into the whole Jade Cargill winning the women's title and then her stealing it from Cargill.
Okay, is Jade Cargill currently holding a belt? There's 87 belts. I don't know who's got what.
Not presently, but the belief is that Cargill is one of the favorites for Women's Queen of the Ring.
Okay, I would like to see that.
And then Queen of the Ring results in a title shot at the brand champion of your brand at SummerSlam. And what better way for Naomi to get her revenge on Jade than Jade gets her rematch with Tiffany. Jade beats Tiffany for the title at SummerSlam. Naomi cashes in on a tired Jade afterwards and steals the title.
Can I tell you, with the amount of women that, really good women's wrestlers they have right now, I'm actually kind of excited for Evolution. Like, it's not one I'm going to be able to watch. It'll be one I can watch like in the background because I have a podcast that night. But I will watch it. I'll have it on in the background. I'm legitimately excited for it.
Top to bottom, it's easily the most loaded women's roster they've ever had.
Yeah, and it's not centered around, an ex-MMA lunatic, which is nice.
Yeah, fuck that bitch.
I like Ronda Rousey, but
I don't.
I'm never going to not think she's a lunatic.
I stand with Drew Gulak.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
Google, we'll talk about it next time.
Okay. So, yeah, I thought I remember. So
we're already almost. We're already almost an hour in.
You told me you had nothing to say about Worlds Collide, so we're still on track.
Fair enough.
I remember. I guess it was the summer of 2022. I did a alternative commentary for Money in the Bank, and I remember distinctly laughing hysterically with Chris Bailey and Chris Sheehan.
Shout out Chris Bailey.
Because all of those women were falling all over each other. Like, it was the klutziest women's Money in the Bank match I'd ever seen.
I think that's around the time that they realized that if they're going to try to be serious about a women's division, then they actually have to have talented women on the main roster. And that's when a lot of the better workers in NXT ended up moving up to the main roster. And a lot of the people that were on the main roster at that time, Carmella, your Lana's, your people like that ended up getting phased out of being in actual matches and moved back to managerial-esque positions.
Yeah. That was only 3 years ago. So in 3 years' time, the women's Money in the Bank match actually felt like a real wrestling match. Like, I was looking for it. I was waiting to criticize it. And I didn't see anything worse there than I'd seen in any other men's match. As opposed to the 2022 one, which was a train wreck.
I think the women's Money in the Bank match this year was better than the men's.
It was more interesting, and it had characters I actually cared about as opposed to the men's one. Which brings us to the men's one, which was won by Seth Rollins. Yeah, no shit. And he defeated Andrade El Grande Americano, LA Knight, Penta, and Solo Sikoa. And the only other thing about this match that stood out to me was Jacob Fatu finally got freed from the chains binding him to the Bloodline 2.0.
I said this when it happened originally. I said it again when it happened on SmackDown before Money in the Bank, and I'm going to say it in a public forum right here, right now, and I want you to timestamp it for future reference.
Okay.
Within the next 3 years, Braun Breaker versus Jacob Fatu is a WrestleMania main event.
Yeah, I hope so. I said the first time I saw Braun Breaker and I saw what a big deal they were making about him, I was like, that's your future WrestleMania main event.
He's one of those guys who just inherently gets it. It's in his DNA, and it's there. Like, you either get the business or you don't. And Braun Breaker gets the business. Right. And putting him with somebody like a Paul Heyman as a mouthpiece and a Seth Rollins as a mentor is going to do nothing but skyrocket his in-ring ability, his promo ability, and his adaptability towards the situations that he might find himself in on a week-in, week-out basis.
I don't want them to do the Bloodline 3.0, but I do want Jacob Fatu to have a gang. And I mean like a street gang. Like, I mean, the kind of people who you walk into a room and they're all packing heat. There's drugs around, and there's a very likely chance you're going to die. I need Jacob Fatu to be the leader of that gang.
So what you're saying is you want Jacob Fatu to star in an episode of Breaking Bad in the WWE.
I was thinking The Wire. But yes,
A&E shows all the same.
my point being, like, Jacob Fatu going into like a WrestleMania being like this dangerously violent, drug lord character, I think would be awesome. And Braun Breaker as like, the hero.
I see it the other way. I see Breaker as the heel and Fatu as the face. That dude is fucking over, man.
I hear you. I don't disagree. I love Jacob Fatu. My kids love Jacob Fatu. Do you really see him as like do you see him as the Cody Rhodes, the John Cena, the Hulk Hogan, the Steve Austin?
Yes, and here's why. Okay. Because he's relatable to the modern generation.
Tells you a lot about the modern generation, doesn't it?
Yada I mean.
Okay.
He's in touch with what's trending, what's current, what's hip.
I'll tell you this: if they kind of do a Daniel Bryan with him, and they were like, "There's no fucking way you with your mumble mouth and your hip hoppity antics. There's no way you're a B+ player," and him kind of having that that Steve Austin
fighting from underneath thing.
Yeah, the non-corporate guy fighting the corporate ladder to become champion. Then it works.
Could you think of a better corporate champion than a guy like a third generation talent in Braun Breaker?
Yeah, I mean, the more we're talking about it, the more you're selling me on the idea of Braun Breaker is The Rock and Jacob Fatu is Steve Austin.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I could 100% see that as the dynamic.
Okay. All right, let's get into Worlds Collide. This is what it's like when worlds collide.
Okay, Power Man 5000 100% should have been the theme song for this show. B, interesting news tidbit that I didn't know if you were or were not aware of. Did you know they actually tried to reach out to Mike Tenay in order to be part of the broadcast team for this show?
Did not. I don't even know why you think I'd know that, but I did not know.
I figured you would find it interesting all the same.
I do. I loved Mike Tenay. Mike, can I tell you, in all the years I watched Nitro, Mike Tenay was my favorite announcer.
Same.
You know who my least favorite announcer was?
Tony Schiavone?
Mongo McMichael. Mongo McMichael was the drizzling shits.
Rest in peace, Steve.
I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but Mongo McMichael was
no, he was horrible.
And it was funny. Like, I very passionately hated Mongo McMichael. I hated him as a wrestler. I hated him as everything. I was like, please go back to football.
Mongo was a below average wrestler. He was an even worse than that commentator.
Yeah. And then he was part of the Horsemen. What a legacy of terrible people in that organization.
Well, to be fair, Paul Romo was a Horseman, which tells you all you need to know.
Still better than Mongo.
I disagree.
You're out of your mind.
Paul Romo was the drizzling shits and got fired for being unprofessional on pay-per-view.
Still better than Mongo.
Disagree.
Okay. We shall agree to disagree. Worlds Collide. was a professional wrestling live streaming event and
Hello, Wikipedia.
Co-produced by Shut Up, you're rapist. By the American promotion WWE and its Mexican sister promotion Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide. By the way, Conan looks like Mexican grandpa. Oh, he did not age well. They say black don't crack, but let me tell you, Conan looked like a pile of crispy, crumbly crackers. Conan looked rough, man.
I don't disagree. Well, in fairness, Conan was barely able to get around for the longest time there because of wasn't he like partially? Didn't he have like a stroke and was partially paralyzed for a while?
Like I'm like people are like you're so mean, Radulich. I'm like I'm not saying. Look, he's earned every bit of everything he's ever gotten. I love Conan to death. I miss my
Hooty hoo.
I miss my arriba la raza. We bow to. I love his Mexican gibberish. Always have, always will.
In the process
and who amongst us isn't going to look the way he did when we're that old? But they put these guys on camera, and it's like it looked like he was being held up, by other little Mexicans around him. They're all like fucking puppeteering him around.
It's a good thing it was a supportive chair.
Yeah, that they had him stapled to.
Well, if you watched Raw, you said you didn't watch Raw the next night. They showed him in the crowd on Raw the next night, and they like the luchador acknowledgement thing, and the two luchadors sitting next to him stood up and acknowledged the crowd. Conan wanted to stand up and couldn't stand up.
I don't doubt it.
He was able to stand up on the second time of trying, but the first.
To say he did a good job on commentary, though. I think him being there was important. Obviously, you needed somebody knowledgeable. It would have been nice if it had been Conan and Mike today. That would have been the shit.
See, I'm okay with Corey being there, though. I think Corey showed up and showed out here. He actually put in a really good performance.
I have no complaints. I just think it would have been better. One of the things I liked about WCW in its early years was the Mike Tenay Lucha Libre show.
The early cruiserweight division stuff, yes.
Yeah. Because it felt. We've talked about this a million times. We'll talk about it a million more. When wrestling makes it feel like it's real, it's a much more enjoyable product. And Mike Tenay talked about Lucha Libre wrestling like it was the very real thing. Like I went along for the ride because of the knowledge that Mike Tenay brought.
I was going to say I don't think that's so much on the wrestling as it is on the performance art of Mike Tenay and the fact that
that's what I'm saying, Harry.
Yeah, but I think this is a situation where Tenay added so much to the characters and so much to the presentation there that I don't think Tenay ever got the proper credit that he deserved, both in WCW and especially for his run in TNA, which, given some of the people he was left to work with in TNA, that man was a goddamn miracle worker in TNA at times.
A lot of Mongo McMichaels in TNA.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Don West. Rest in peace, Don West. But early Don West is fucking horrid to listen to. It is Mongo bad.
Everyone has the Chris Kloss disease where they're doing wrestling commentator voice instead of just being up and being involved. They have to everyone has to do their worst impression of Joey Styles.
I hate to say this, we're not going to have to go back and do an old XPW show. I feel like we have to, just because we shit on XPW so much.
Well, they were mean to me. So anyway, I
want to go back and do a show from that era.
As I was saying, it was the fourth Worlds Collide under the WWE banner and took place Saturday, June 7th at the Kia Forum in Inglewood in the Hood, California. It featured wrestlers from WWE's Raw, SmackDown, and NXT brand, and from AAA, which WWE signed a letter of intent to acquire in April of 2025, but as of the time of the event has not been formalized.
The belief is that the purchase is going to close in the second half of 2025, probably around September or October.
The event also featured the involvement of wrestlers from TNA, a partner promotion of both WWE and AAA, such as Octagon Jr. and Laredo Kid.
Correct.
So let's go through these. The six-man tag was Octagon Jr., Aerostar, and Mr. Iguana, who was the fucking highlight of this whole event. And they defeated the Latino World Order of Dragon Lee, Cruz del Toro, and Lince Dorado.
No, the fucking highlight of the event was Lince Dorado giving Mr. Iguana's plushy iguana a Spanish fly. I fucking howled.
It's so funny that, like, wrestling fans latch on to stuff. And it's such a especially during the Vince years, you're a rapist. How they tried to control what they were putting out versus what the fans would react to. They really tried to reduce wrestling to like a mathematical formula balanced on both sides, and they could never control for what the fans would latch onto because the fans are idiots.
It was a case of control your narrative before that became an EC3 gimmick.
He needs to stop. But
I don't think it's a gimmick anymore. I'm pretty sure that's dead and buried at this point.
It still needs to stop. My point is that because no matter what you plan for, no matter what you try to solve for, you can never predict a reaction to Mr. Iguana. And I laughed my ass off at it. I was hooting and hollering and having just a grand old time.
So you know what I think it is? I think it's a larger scale version of Danhausen.
Danhausen!
It's that innate charisma that you can't deny. It just jumps at you through the screen.
Danhausen!
Speaking of which, his contract's about to expire, and I understand that he does have a friend in Phil in the WWE nowadays.
He's like as tall as my son, though.
I could see him as an NXT guy.
Only an NXT guy.
I don't disagree with that, but you're telling me you couldn't see him as a guy feuding with Ethan Page for the North American title? I absolutely could see that.
Because they've had so many shorties in
Adam Cole is like NXT. 5'5" and 150 pounds.
Yeah, no, they've had some short guys in NXT, and that's why I'm not really arguing with you about it. They absolutely, I think Danhausen sells a lot of shirts. Danhausen, it's got a fun character.
One of the most popular.
The one guy who I loved, but I love shooters. With the missing teeth, he had a run with Matt Riddle there for a little while.
Tom Lawler?
No, not Filthy Tom Lawler. The other guy that was doing like the catch wrestling school thing.
Timothy Thatcher.
Yeah. They had Timothy Thatcher, who looks like, he never met a bar fight he didn't like.
Or one.
Yeah. And they had him there, so there's no reason to not have.
Thatcher's under contract again, actually.
Is he really? To do what?
He's working as a trainer with Evolve.
Oh, well, that makes all the sense in the world. So what do you think of this match? I focus on the score of the women's basketball game.
I thought the 6-man tag to start the show was the right decision there, and I think that when you get a wrestler that the fans are organically into like that, it helps the other participants around them. Specifically, it made life so much easier for Lindsay to be able to get the LWO some actual investment there, some crowd heat there when he went after Lajeska.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like I said, I'm making a big deal out of the Mr. Iguana guy because he stood up. But the whole match was it was very WCW Lucha era cruiserweight 6-man tag Nitro.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: Mr. Iguana was shown on both Raw and NXT after Worlds Collide, so it tells you who the star of this match was.
I was going to say, watch him get signed to like a main roster somewhere, and then they'll put him on a lawn mower, and he'll be a Mexicool.
Assuming Juventud can avoid doing drugs in Australia.
So, because it was a push, I won $158 on a $50 bet. Would have been $244 had they actually gone over $223.
Again, you're welcome for the Braves.
Okay. Continue to take credit you don't deserve. That's fine.
That's kind of what I do on this podcast.
So let's move on to the next match, or talk about my gambling. Stephanie Vaquer and Lola Vice defeated.
Excuse me, say her name correctly.
Oh, Stephanie Vader.
Thank you.
And Chick Tormenta, which is a fantastic name. I once saw Chick Tormenta open up for Metallica in 1989 at the Nassau Coliseum. And Dallas by pinfall, and this was good. I wasn't paying as close attention to this one as maybe I should have, but I thought this was a good match. I thought the women acquitted themselves well. Nobody was klutzy. I thought this was a really good match.
I think that the main purpose of this match was to showcase Lola Vice, because we know what Stephanie Vaquer is capable of. Mm-hmm. Dalise is 50. She's never going to get a main WWE run. No offense.
Right.
And Chick Tormenta is somebody who's going to be a niche performer at best. Yeah. Lola Vice is somebody who they've had really high hopes for in NXT and who has a lot of mainstream crossover appeal from her MMA run under her real name of Valerie Laredo.
Okay.
So this was an opportunity to showcase her, to put her in the ring with an up-and-coming star as her partner in Stephanie Vaquer, and to say that this is a girl who can be at that same level that Vaquer is if you guys will give her the chance to reach it.
Next match was Legado del Fantasma of Santos, Escobar, Angel, and Berto defeated El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., Pagano, and Psycho Clown.
Okay, let's first of all talk about the stupid-ass bump that Pagano took, because, Jesus, what in the name of Chris Hamrick was that shit? God damn.
That was a rough bump, man.
You know you're getting old when you look at a wrestling performance now, and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't get up from that. I wouldn't get up from that. I probably wouldn't get up from that.
Do you remember Sammy Guevara versus Cody? I think it was, where they did the ladder match on one of AEW.
The title unification Dynamite one. The TNT title unification ladder match.
But it was one of their Clash of the Champion shows.
A Battle of the Belts.
Right. And Sammy Guevara took a 12-foot fall on his gut across a ladder, and I thought he died. Then you have Matt Hardy falling directly on his head off a platform at, Assholes.
And he almost did die.
Yeah, at Assholes in the Arena or whatever it was called.
That's a pretty accurate assessment of the match.
Yeah, it was that kind of bump. I was like, oh my God, why would you do? And here's the thing, the Matt Hardy one was just poor wrestling. It was, they didn't take care of each other, and
Hardy smacked his head on the concrete.
And and that wasn't how that was supposed to go. The Sammy Guevara one is him being an idiot and him going, I have to kill myself to get over these days.
I mean, basically, that therein lies the problem there. Well, you're familiar with what I mean when I say the Chris Hamrick bump, yes?
Yes.
So there are going to be some people out there that have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Hamrick used to take a hands-free bump through the middle rope to the floor flat back. Why? Because Chris Hamrick was a fucking moron.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think Mick Foley was saying it in the 90s, and other people have, John Cena's saying it now. When you think about what is at the heart of John Cena thing, it's don't kill yourself for the fans. They won't remember it. They don't appreciate it. They'll cheer in the moment. The moment will pass, and you will stay with an injury and not be able to continue to do what you're doing or do other things that bring quality to your life. And another guy will come up behind you and do something even dumber.
So I'm not a fan of the guy, but it is interesting to go back and read old issues of The Observer.
Mm-hmm.
And to see things about, especially back in the time frame when Dave knew what the fuck he was talking about.
Wait, when he wasn't Baghdad Bob for AEW?
Yeah, pretty much. When he wasn't on the corporate, when he was on the corporate blood money dick sucking. There you go. There's a visual for you. Anyways, the point being is that he talks about Mick Foley and Sabu when they're in their formative years back in the early 90s. And he says, enjoy them while you can, because they won't last long doing what they do. And in Foley's case, he was absolutely correct, because Foley was more or less retired within 6 years.
Yeah.
It's a situation of you're doing what you're doing in the moment for the business, a business that owes you nothing, that you owe whatever popularity you get out of it to the business, but you're doing it at the expense of your own personal well-being, and that is a choice that you have to be willing to make in order to reach that level.
If you have a time machine and you can go back and change one event, it would be interesting to see what Mick Foley's career would have become had he not attempted suicide at King of the Ring.
I think that while it may have caused a relational strife with Colette and the fact that she was pissed off at him for doing what he did at King of the Ring, Mick Foley doesn't become Mick Foley without King of the Ring.
Right. In a year and a half later, because that's June, and he gets the world title in December of the following year.
January.
No, it was the December Raw.
January of 99, January 4th, 1999.
Is that when it was? Okay.
Yep.
I thought it was late December, but you're probably
It
right.
was taped late December in 1998, but
oh my god, then we're both right.
6 months later.
But yeah, like, does he get that title win over The Rock?
No.
Does he get that push? And the answer
No.
is probably not. No, right. And I think I'm bringing it up because I think it's the math a lot of guys do. Like, here's
Risk
the problem,
versus
though.
reward.
How many more King of the Ring bumps are there in this world that are going to have that level of impact?
And that's the sad thing, is that there's going to be people chasing that bump, that infamy, that level high of high. Mm-hmm. And then eventually we're going to see a situation of one of those bumps is attempted, and it ends up in a situation where something like what happened to Dross happens.
Yeah.
And
so
Dross
I'll do another one for you. You know, Jeff Hardy's spear, you know, in the middle of by Devon Dudley in the Edge rather.
TLC 2 at WrestleMania.
What am I thinking about with Devon Dudley then? I know he was hanging at one point.
Devon did a spot where he was hanging from the belt with Christian. Right. He kicked Christian off, and then Devon got ladder shotted by Edge in the ribs, and he flat backed.
But it's Edge who spears Jeff Hardy.
Correct.
Off the in the middle in midair.
He does that at the first TLC at SummerSlam in 2000, and then he does it at TLC 3, which is the one that happens on SmackDown in 2001.
So my point is, like, the only other one I can think of where you're looking at it like, oh my god, with the pretty huge risk for for an undetermined amount of reward was that one, because ever since then, have guys done stupider bumps? Yes, but were they as impactful? No. The last impactful bump of that magnitude was the Jeff Hardy spear.
I mean, it's hard to think of one off the top of my head. No, I'll give you one that I do think was impactful after that. It also involved Edge, actually, the flaming table spear with Foley.
But all right, Edge was already a made guy, and as was Foley. I'm talking about, like,
in order to make your name with a bump. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Janela in the Indies, you could make the argument with the roof bump with Zandik at Tournament of Survival.
That's the best Chinese food place in the basement of an abandoned building behind a door that says "Beware the Leopard."
I am aware of where you're going with that, yes. But does Joey Janela become who Joey Janela is without that bump?
I guess not. But where Joey Janela finally lands is not nearly as prominent as Foley or Jeff Hardy.
But he's been able to make a career and a life for himself.
Somebody's like, I guarantee you, people listening to this are going to be like, but this guy's bump and this guy's bump. Like the one lunatic who did the tightrope walk around the cage.
Elix Skipper.
Yeah. The fact that I don't even remember his fucking name. Like Elix Skipper did an awesome, amazing bump. And
Elix Skipper was retired within 3 years.
That's what I'm saying. Like, guys are like, I have to throw myself off a Hell in the Cell in order to get the level of popularity Mick Foley did. That's like saying I have to recreate the Beatles. You can't recreate the Beatles. Only the Beatles can be the Beatles. After that, it's just you just sound like them.
You're doing your best tribute act. No, I agree.
Right. Here's the thing. It's one thing to do Can't Buy Me Love. It's a whole other thing to land, to throw yourself off a 12-foot fucking precipice onto your head inside of an ordinary drinking glass. Observe.
I'm trying to get the reference there.
That would be a cartoon. That's the dog doing the high dive.
Yeah.
I will dive into an ordinary drinking glass.
Observe. The Looney Tunes bit. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I wish these guys would see that there is no attaining the heights of Mick Foley at this point by doing those kinds of bumps.
I would like to say that it's going to get better, but I think we both know it's not.
No, because nobody has this level of insight. I am a genius.
It's more of a case of there's not this level of self-awareness in the business of professional wrestling.
That too, I guess. Speaking of self-awareness, Ethan Page defeated Javon Evans, Laredo Kid, and Ray Phoenix by pinfall. This was your normal, average,
disagree.
Fantastic.
The fantastic.
Four-man NXT match. Like, this didn't fit. Everything up to this felt like it could have been a AAA match. This one felt solidly NXT.
Well, but when you're doing the Worlds Collide aspect of it, you needed that NXT feel for this show as well.
Okay. I'm
And
not arguing about it.
And I'm okay with that too. And you got the luchador influence in this match as well with Laredo Kid, who was representing both TNA and AAA, as you talked about earlier when you did your Wikipedia read, as well as Ray Phoenix, who has a storied history in AAA with both as an individual performer and with his brother Pentagon.
All right, and then the main event, El Hijo del Vikingo. Vikingo defeated Chad Gable by pinfall. Good match. Chad Gable's a great hand, you know?
Good match is significantly underselling this match.
All right, well, significantly oversell it then.
Okay. This is your 2025 match of the year leader right now.
Really? Probably should pay closer attention to it then.
I'd go back and rewatch it.
Okay.
I'm genuinely serious when I say that. It is my current clubhouse leader for match of the year for 2025.
Fair enough. So
Vikingo is one of those guys where he takes a lot of really stupid risks. And when they land, they look spectacular, but he crashes and burns almost as often as he lands the spot. There was one particular spot there, that back flipping 450 that he did where he was facing out towards the crowd and then rope spun into the Phoenix Splash 450, that my jaw dropped because there's like a handful of people in the world that have the athleticism to pull that off.
So overall, I thought Worlds Collide was a fun event. It took me a minute to realize it was on YouTube and not Peacock, and I almost threw my remote through the television. Because I was like, trying to find it. I'm like, why?
Well, because AAA airs on Max in Mexico, so they couldn't have put the show on Peacock.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm not mad that it wasn't on Peacock. It was like I thought it was. So when I couldn't find it, initially I was getting irritated.
You had a near aneurysm trying to find the damn show. No, I get it.
Yeah. But you know, this was how I spent part of my birthday week. My mom was like, I want to take you out to dinner. And I'm like, no, there's Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank, so we'll go to lunch. My mom's like, but I want to spend more time with you. And I'm like, then come over and watch wrestling. She was like, not that much more time. So
it's basically how it is with me trying to get my girlfriend to watch wrestling sometimes.
Yeah. So I enjoyed, a couple hours of watching Worlds Collide. I kind of miss Nitro. I miss the lucha wrestling, and you're like, oh, and this is where everyone's like, oh, then watch these 20 shows. No, the answer is no. This has to be convenient for me. And this was a solid night of wrestling that I blocked out, made lasagna, the whole deal, to sit and watch it. And I got kind of like my fix of lucha wrestling. That's at a higher tier than other times that I used to watch the AAA show that used to be on back in the 90s and early 2000s, where it was all right, but it felt a little underproduced.
Are you referring to the WWE AAA show with Super Astros or the actual AAA show that used to be on like Universal?
The actual, yeah. There was a point where DVRs were just coming out where I DVR'd every wrestling and MMA and boxing thing there was to watch.
I DVR every wrestling thing there is to watch currently still, so I get it. We were discussing this a little bit in our build-up towards the show. We talked about it on Sunday, and I sent you a message, and I'm going to quote myself from the message that I sent you. Going to be hard to talk about Worlds Collide. I don't know what I expected, but show of the year so far wasn't it.
Okay.
I don't think there was a single miss on this entire show. Everything was good to great wrestling. Yeah. The storytelling was fantastic. Corey Graves and Conan did a fantastic job at the announce table. They paid tribute to the history of Lucha Libre with all the video packages and the Rey Mysterio thing at the beginning. They also used it to build future stuff by having Dominic Mysterio involved at ringside after the first match in order to set up the match at Money in the Bank against Octagon Jr. Granted, the match only went like 5 minutes, but whatever. They used it as a platform in order to get a star for Lucha Libre.
I have never enjoyed Dominic Mysterio more than I do right this very moment.
He is on such a heater of a run right now. It is incredible how...
You talk about like Braun Breaker gets wrestling. Yes, so does Dominic.
Dominic started getting it once they let Dominic stop being Rey Mysterio's kid and be himself.
When they started letting him be Eddie Guerrero's kid.
Yeah, pretty much. Did you see the picture that he posted about taking the IC title to Eddie's gravesite?
No.
I said to myself, oh, he wants to see his dad. How nice.
I do wonder because I don't really know Dominic Mysterio as a person, obviously. I'm wondering, like, how much of his current character is his actual personality just tuned up. Like how much of this was, how much did he ache against the barriers that were placed on him being Rey Mysterio's milquetoast baby face son, and when he was like, okay, well, we're gonna let you, kind of like with The Rock, we're just gonna let you be you, make it entertaining, or you're not gonna last long. And he's like, finally, I get to be myself. And he's like,
Or,
and he's like an asshole, greasy Mexican.
I mean, another applicable comparison here would be the Cena rapper gimmick.
Yeah.
The thing that saved Cena's job. That's basically Dominic Mysterio right now with his dirty Dom persona. It saved his job, because I guarantee you, if he would have stayed milquetoast babyface Dom Mysterio, he'd have been fired within 2 years.
Oh no, yeah, he wouldn't be here now. But that's my point. Like, how much of this is his invention, and how much of this is like my real personality?
I'm just a douchebag.
I'm just a douchebag. Yeah, I'm an entitled asshole douchebag. My dad's a superstar wrestler, and
Don't like me, fight me.
right, yeah, and I can and I pull hot blondes.
Seriously, that dude's batting percentage is insane.
He's not a bad looking kid. I can see why girls get wet for him.
And apparently now Roxy's on the case too.
Good for Dom.
Well,
Dom, never get married, but pull as many bitches as you can. That's what I.
The irony of that is he's already married.
What is monogamy, Harry Broadhurst? It's just a word.
Oh, that's a completely different conversation that we don't have time to get into on this episode of the IndySiders.
And I'm halfway kidding. All right, so that is our. So, what is monogamy? Just a word is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. So that is the end of our show.
Basically, if you only have time to watch a couple of matches, Iguana, the 6-man opener, in order to see the viral sensation that Mr. Iguana became out of it. And again, maybe the funniest spot of the year with Lince Dorado giving the La Yesca a Spanish fly. Right, the NXT North American 4-way and the main event are the 3 matches of the 5 that you really need to see, in my opinion.
Cool. We will be back July 9th. We'll be talking my favorite event of the year, GCW Backyard Wrestling. What terrorist attack will happen at this show? What will they blow up using military-grade missiles? And then after that, we'll be back on July 30th. We'll be talking Scenic City Invitational, and we'll be previewing SummerSlam, which will be that weekend. Also, Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois is the same night as the second night of Scenic City Invitational, because I will also have had at that point All In Great American Bash, so there'll be a lot of wrestling to talk about by the time we get to our July 30th show. But I'm going to make you talk about Usyk versus Dubois, because I don't have another place to do it anymore. I don't do the boxing show anymore.
What is that on?
Doesn't matter.
If I'm going to watch it, I'm going to have to be able to talk. If I'm going to talk about it.
I just said I was going to make you talk about it. I didn't say you had to watch it.
Nobody does reviews for boxing at 411. If this was an MMA thing, I could just handle. I could handle on Winfrey yabbering about every little detail.
Wow. Anyway,
he would appreciate me saying that.
I will figure that out, and I will let you know, because I honestly don't remember anymore. All right, so that is our IndySiders show. Monday, myself and Robert reviewed Ballerina. It sucks. Don't believe the hype. Everyone's saying, oh, it's fine, but people are just sick of girl boss movies. No, it's also fucking terrible. Tomorrow, which is today, actually, Pride Month kicks off in earnest. Myself and Sean Comer will be talking The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Tu Wong Fu. Whoa. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. And Hedwig and the Angry Inch. So there's that. Next week, this Sunday, Father's Day, as a matter of fact, Source Material is back. Myself and Jesse Starcher will be doing the entire original run of the Darth Vader comic, volumes 1 through 4, and the crossover special, Vader Downtown, Julie Brown. On Monday is How to Train Your Dragon.
It looks interesting.
Yeah. Wednesday the 18th, a week from tonight or yesterday night, we will be doing a review of The Critic, both seasons 1 and 2. I started watching that with my kids tonight. They were having a great time.
That's the John Lovitz show, right?
Yeah, and it's fucking hysterical.
Where's that streaming at?
Tubi.
Noted.
And then We continue Pride Month. Matt Kettner will be on the show. We'll be doing a director focus for the Wachowski sisters. Sisters. Better than misters. We'll be talking bound clad outlets, and only the second time in my history of podcasting, I'll be having a discussion about Jupiter ascending. Because when it comes to crap, not once is enough. Have to do it twice. 2 times. 5 times.
Which is why I'm dragging you back to XPW.
Ugh. Harry Broadhurst, what do you do these days? Do you do anything?
I do, actually. Bad Brackets is back.
Woohoo!
Myself, Randy Isbell's the host. I guest as one of the panelists sometimes. Other names that you will recognize from the W2M Network family of shows include Robert Taylor, Eric Watkins, Robert Hagan. We do basically bracketed formatting discussions about various things. The most recent episode that I was on was AJ Styles matches in honor of AJ Styles' birthday, which was last Monday. And then I think the next episode that I'm on is the reunion of the Unwise Men, myself, Eric, and Robert Hagan, the original 3 for Bad Brackets. We discuss best burger toppings in bracket format and decide what is the best topping for a burger.
Where can we find this podcast, Harry Broadhurst?
It's on YouTube. If you look for Bad Brackets on YouTube, you'll find all the back catalog for all the season 2 episodes on there.
There's an actual YouTube channel for Bad Brackets itself?
Yes.
Nice. All right, folks, I have to pee. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Peace out.